Yes, boys and girls, it's winter in Canada. The freezing cold, you got the blizzards, your runny noses, all that good stuff. But if you think that's tough, well, my friends, you ain't seen nothing yet. Geoff Green is Canada's foremost adventure educator. He spends a lot of time in conditions that make our winter seem downright balmy. We're talking minus 60 to 70 degrees Celsius. It scares me to even just say that. Geoff has led more than 100 expeditions to Antarctica and the Arctic, and even the penguins recognize this guy. All right, so he grew up in southern Ontario and then after high school headed to Europe, worked as a ski instructor in the Swiss Alps, and was the skipper on yachts in southern France. Now, eventually, home called. He came back to Canada, became a school teacher, but never lost his fascination with other places. Geoff was fascinated by the polar regions. Then in 1999, a tourism company asked him to go on an expedition to the Arctic, and suddenly it hit him. What an incredible platform for education. In fact, Geoff thinks it's the greatest classroom on Earth, so he started a program called Students on Ice. And together with a team of scientists and experts, Geoff takes students from around the world on educational trips to the North and South Poles.
Who's ready to go to the Antarctic?
The idea, connect kids to nature and let them see the effects of climate change firsthand.
Ready to go, you guys? You made it.
Woo! Geoff's goal is to inspire the next generation of scientists, leaders, and environmentalists. Now, over the past 8 years, he's brought more than 1,000 students to the poles, along with celebrities like Diana Krall and Dan Aykroyd. Everybody, please say hello to Geoff Green. I know, for a lot, most people at home were never going to get the opportunity to go to a place like Antarctica. Some people watching us may, in fact, be living close to the Arctic Circle or above it. In this fine country, we have that benefit here. But it's one of those places, not unlike I think Africa was to a lot of kids maybe 60 or 70 years ago, right? Especially European kids would dream about going to Africa. It represented something. I think for a lot of people, we're never going to see the poles, on this planet, and you've gone there many, many times. Talk about the first time you went there and what you saw.
The first time I went to the Arctic in our backyard, and it was not something I'd planned to do. It's funny how career paths can take
I thought you went left when you should have gone right.
Well,
you're like, what the? How did I?
It's not far from that, the actual tale, but it was an overwhelming experience. It opened up a whole new world to me. Our backyard, the Canadian Arctic, is one of the most beautiful and incredible parts of the planet. And you've been there too. And you get something called polar fever, and I think I got a pretty bad case of it on that first trip.
Very different from Montezuma's Revenge.
Very different.
Very different.
Yeah, the water's nice and clean.
Yeah, absolutely. So you go up there, and instead of you just going back and telling stories, you're an educator, and you bring kids up there.
Well, I'd been a school teacher, and then I became an expedition leader, leading these journeys around the world for scientific groups and for tourists and for wacky adventures. And one day the two careers kind of collided. I was witnessing how these adults were looking at the planet differently after they'd been to the Arctic and the Antarctic, and their perspectives were really changing on the environment and their role on spaceship Earth. And I just thought, imagine if you could give that experience to youth at that formative, transformative period at the beginning of their life, and how that would shape their futures and define who they are. So that's Students on Ice. I also say a little penguin wandered up and pecked me in the leg and said, "Bring kids down here."
That means you were on some wicked drugs. If the penguin talked, you brought peyote with you, didn't you?
No comment.
Okay. But I imagine, the value is clearly there, but it's not like a field trip to Quebec City.
No.
It's dangerous. You're getting kids down to Argentina. It's a 2.5-day boat ride, big dangerous boat ride to get to Antarctica.
Not too dangerous, but...
Well, but you got 70-foot swells, don't you?
You can get, it's the roughest seas of the world, for sure. You get the tip of South America, Cape Horn, and the tip of the Antarctic Peninsula, and the Antarctic Ocean has to be squeezed through that gap. So you get, I mean, that's part of the experience. You're going to a place where Mother Nature is so in control, and you're humbled. You have a sense of awe and wonder that I think our society is losing that connection with the natural world, and you get it bang, like in your face the second you arrive.
Right,
There's icebergs bigger than this building, bigger than Toronto. And for a student, it takes them away from this media-saturated, over-programmed society, and it's remarkable. You watch the transformation happening right in front of you.
I would think, too, it's, psychologically, philosophically, it's probably better having a 2.5-day boat ride to get there, because in a sense it kind of intellectually or emotionally would cleanse your palate, so that when you arrive in Antarctica, you have a chance to, as opposed to just flying in there at the speed of your life.
It's like a rite of passage, and you're kind of broken down. It's like a cult without the drugs, and by the time you get to the Antarctic, you've been seasick, you're exhausted, and then Antarctica, or in the case of the Arctic, it builds you back up, and it allows for this powerful experience in a short period of time.
It's not an inexpensive prospect. It's like, what, $9,000 for a kid to go?
Yeah, or more.
Or more. Then the first question you would think is, well, does that mean only rich kids can go? But have you found a way to get people who don't have the money to be able to experience this?
Yeah, absolutely. About 75% of the kids are fully funded or sponsored. And we've had students from 35 different countries around the world, students from inner city New York, students from across the Canadian Arctic. Next month, we're heading back down with a group from across the country, and we've got 2 students from Greece Fjord.
Like, you're sleeping on the ice in a tent, right?
We sometimes are right on the frozen Arctic Ocean. So when you're talking about climate change, the classroom is under your feet or in the distance, and that's the beauty of the experience, for sure.
Polar bears ever come close?
Yeah, we've had some pretty close encounters with polar bears. And one just a few years ago, we were playing ultimate frisbee out on the frozen Arctic Ocean, and one of the frisbees kind of went off track into some broken up ice, and turned out there was a polar bear just sleeping on the other side of one of the
Serves you right for
chunks of
playing
ice.
ultimate frisbee. Not even ice hockey?
He didn't want to join in either, so...
That's amazing. You've acted green too, don't you?
I wanted to congratulate you. The 1 Million Acts of Green is such an amazing initiative. I took it a little bit too far. I actually changed my last name.
To Green? I don't think that's too far.
But one of the things I wanted to mention was I think the 21st century generation, we could become the Generation G, the green generation. And not just G for green, but G for grace, gratitude, generosity, global. And it's have a generation that permeates everything that all of our choices. Like the things you're promoting with the 1 Million Acts of Green, but a Generation G, I think, would be a real goal for us to shoot for. And by taking these kids on the expeditions, that's our ultimate goal, that they come back as ambassadors to make a difference. One of my acts of green is maybe to somehow, with all of you and Canadians across the country, is to promote this concept of a Generation G. And also, we want to build the world's most environmentally advanced expedition sailing vessel that we'll use for our future journey, so we don't have to be using an icebreaker that burns fossil fuels.
Right. So, right, cool. It's a Geoff's organization. It's called Students on Ice. And next month, as you said, heading to Antarctica again with a bunch of college students. Geoff Green, everybody. Nice to see you. All right, still to come tonight, the Smashing Pumpkins.